Oh, hello. Hey, Brewer fans. Welcome to the Brew Review, podcast number 12. We're coming at you. Joining us today is Scott Bartell. Hi, Scott.
Hey.
Vince Travato. Hey, Vince.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Chad Collins. Chad, are you there?
Yeah, Chad. Scotty, you talked to Chad, didn't you? What did he say he was doing today?
Chad was doing, I think, post-race interviews with Kentucky Derby horses. So
Yeah, he's down in Kentucky. I know that one time we all visited Kentucky together, and we spent a lot of time in Hodgkinsville, Kentucky, which was the home of Abraham Lincoln and his dad, Tom Lincoln, Lincoln. And I think that Chad probably wanted to go back if he was down in Kentucky already.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think he had to buy a bunch of peanut butter and stuff. Makes the horse's lips move. I don't know.
Okay.
It's part of the interview process.
He did interview El Caballo, Carlos Lee, or he got turned down for an interview with Carlos Lee. So I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Sort of his way of getting back at him, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's recap the last week here. Brewers, for the week, they swept the 3 games set in Cincinnati and then lost 2 of the 3 games at home against the Pirates to finish the week 4-2, which I believe Scott was the winning guesser on that one. I think Vince and I both went 3-3 and ended up 4-2. So even though it had kind of a sour note with a dreadful game against the Pirates here on this Sunday, May 6th, the overall week was a success. The Brewers have been doing their best to beat up on the lesser teams in the league, but I guess what are your thoughts on the highlights for the Brewers this week, guys?
Well, it's nice when we play the Reds. Let's just put it that way. I know that, in other seasons, perhaps that hasn't always been the case. And worse Brewer teams in the 2018 version of the Brewers have not played as well against teams with losing records, it seems like. But, this year we're really managing to rack up a few wins and stay in contention in the National League Central by beating the likes of the Reds and the Marlins and the Royals. And I was hoping that we'd have a good series against Pittsburgh. So unfortunately, we took one on the chin in that series, I guess, by losing 2 of the games. But, overall, I guess a week where you go 4-2 is a good week no matter who your opponents are.
Yeah, I guess the Pirates are, a lot like us this year. They're just hard to figure out. You're not sure if they're contenders or pretenders just yet, but they took 2 or 3 of us at home. But like Vince said, the Reds, man, they shellacked us that first game of the year, and then we've just done nothing but wipe the floor with them ever since. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to play, 60 games against the Reds this year, so we're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, and speaking of Monday's game against the Reds, almost a week ago now, Josh Hader basically thrust himself into national headlines by basically throwing what is pretty much been called one of the most epic saves in Major League Baseball history. So I would say that's pretty noteworthy. He pitched 2 2/3 innings, struck out all 8 batters he got outs with, and he walked 1 batter of the 9 batters he faced, but did not allow a run and picked up the save and preserved their 6-5 victory over the Reds. What are your observations if you guys got to see that masterpiece by Haderade?
Yeah, I was able to watch that one, Craig. It was just what a dominating performance, and it really was incredible. I think there is a genuinely reasonable debate to be had, between guys that want Hader to stay in his current role in the bullpen and guys that want Hader to start. But for me, at least, it proves how valuable he is in that bullpen by being able to come in and see a lineup just one time through the order, usually, at the most, and be as dominant as he is when we need him in clutch situations late in the game. To have a guy like Josh Hader, who Craig Counsell can almost always rely on in that role, to come in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning is, to me, a real luxury. And I think that it's a great place for him for the rest of the season, at least.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about like WAR and things like that because it really doesn't. I guess, grasp high leverage situations versus low leverage. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know, but it is nice to see that we had that rousing discussion about what we wanted Hader to be, whether we wanted him, fireman closer or put him in the starting role. And it was great that everybody's asking, is he going to move to a starting role at some point in his career? Is it ever going to happen? And we know about as much as the Milwaukee Brewers beat reporters. Like nobody really knows anything. So for now, it's just gonna kind of be where it is.
Well, I mean, I think it really put an exclamation mark on what the Brewers really have in Josh Hader. The argument could go on forever whether or not it was a mistake to move on to the starting role or not, and into this bullpen role. Obviously, he's going to be a valuable weapon used as he's been being used. But I know that I've been throwing out like Chris Sale comps as a starter, but after seeing in that game, I obviously don't want to set the bar too high, but he literally looked as dominating as Randy Johnson, who's of course the Hall of Famer. And from the left-hand side, like in particular, if you guys go back and get a chance, Brewer fans, if you didn't get to see the game, at least search on the internet, make sure you see, if nothing else, the at-bat that Joey Votto had against him, who's basically one of the most professional, well-respected hitters, with possibly the best plate discipline in the last 10 years in baseball. Josh Hader made him look absolutely silly. He literally buckled his knee on an outside slider. And Votto just gave him a look and shook his head and walked back to there. It was just, he was filthy that night, and just unbelievable. So definitely a huge weapon to have. Hader has been amazing, and really, I guess we'll segue into another topic we'll talk about on this podcast, and that's basically, I'll start by eating crow and saying that I was completely wrong on a previous podcast, criticizing Counsell on his use of the bullpen and kind of these undefined roles after Corey Knebel went down. Since Knebel's went down, the Brewers' bullpen overall has been nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, pretty much all season long, but just phenomenal. I mean, everyone in the bullpen almost has I think, an ERA under 2, outside of Oliver Drake, who we thought would survive the whole season and did finally get DFA'd. But, yeah, unbelievable. Just what are your overall thoughts on this? And Knebel is possibly back within 2 weeks' time or so. Obviously, I think he's going to get his closer role back, and the other guys will slot in other innings and whatnot. But beyond that, obviously, Counsell will probably stick with this plan. But what is your overall take on why the Brewers bullpen has been just successful so far?
I mean, you've got to give a little bit of credit to Derek Johnson and our overall pitching coach philosophies, I guess. It seems like the starters have also performed pretty well too, Craig. But to get to your point about the bullpen, this pen really reminds me a lot of the 2011 Brewers, and that's a very good thing when we had John Axford at closer and Francisco Rodriguez was the 8th inning and LaTroy Hawkins was the 7th and Takashi Saito was the 6th. And you knew that if your starter could get through 5 innings and keep the team in the game, that our bullpen was almost on a nightly basis going to be able to shut down the opposition. And I have as much faith right now in the Brewers bullpen as that 2011 year, and that's saying something. And I don't think that we've seen that same level of dominance anytime since then, or even close to it, unfortunately, from the Brewers pen. And it's really exciting. We got a lot of live arms there, and I think that one of you guys said it on one of the other podcasts, but if Oliver Drake is the worst guy on the team, that does say something compared to other worst guys in other years. And now with Drake being traded to the Indians this week, and with the potential of Knebel coming back from injury, and another guy, Boone Logan, who was one of our major free agent signings, I guess, this offseason, that will hopefully be making an appearance in the Brewers bullpen fairly soon. It's only going to further stabilize that situation in the pen and get guys back into the roles that they were probably envisioned for, as Stearns and Counsell talked over our bullpen this offseason. So it's pretty exciting that we've got so many live arms, guys who I think Jeremy Jefferson this week all want the ball. That's really exciting. So I'm very pleased, as I'm sure every Brewers fan is, with our pen this year.
Yeah, I agree. There's a few things going on. I guess part of it is, like you just said, the undefined roles, where we're looking more at bat to at bat to really make the most out of those matchups. And I guess the other part is, it seems to me that Brew pitchers are now the guys that we're bringing in. They have like at least one plus pitch, and they're not going to get beat on their third best pitch. They might not even throw their third best pitch anymore. It's just that we're going to throw whatever we do best. We're going to keep doing it and make them beat us. And it seems like right now we're just relying on those plus pitches, and people just aren't able to connect.
Guys, our inside source Tom Carter mentioned that that we were probably going to send down Taylor Williams when Corey Knebel comes back. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? That seems like everybody's pitching well right now.
Inside source. Actually, it's supposed to be anonymous, just for future reference. So you said you don't.
Okay. So you can say Tom.
You said we don't have.
Yeah, so you can say Tom C or T Carter, but not Tom Carter's name on the air. Is that how that works, or what should we do?
We'll figure it out next time. I think one of our interns wrote it down. Was it Sapphire that she sent out an email that it went to all of us. I don't know. I didn't read it yet, but it's something about it. Like, I think it was Tom C or T Carter. I think it was one or the other, but not both.
Okay, so we can't say Tom Carter's name on the air. Okay, my bad. We'll edit that out.
I don't think I got that. Scott, if you could have Fantasia send out that email to me, because I didn't get it. I don't know. You got to double check that and follow up on your interns, because I don't think that actually happened. Anyway, back to the point.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll chime in on the Brewers bullpen. First of all, I mean, I think it goes without saying the Brewers are not going to be able to keep this up all season. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a house of cards, but it's somewhat of a or even like a bubble that's going to burst. But I do think a lot of these guys are going to start to gravitate back toward the means, because outside of Hader, who is possibly the best reliever, one of the best relievers in the league, even as a non-closer, him and Knebel, I think, are uber talented, and their numbers show it. But the rest of the guys, I mean, you look at Jeremy Jeffers, I think, is still sitting under one. The last couple of years, or all the times he's not been with the Brewers, he's been pretty much less than mediocre in other bullpens like the Rangers after we had traded him. And so I don't think that he is going to be able to sustain this, and I also don't think he's that phenomenal of a pitcher. With that being said, when he's wearing a Milwaukee Brewer uniform, he definitely has been a valuable reliever, and I'm glad that he's back on the team. Most of these other guys, again, are almost like cast-offs from their teams. I mean, Matt Albers is nothing special, in my opinion. Dan Jennings was cut by the Tampa Rays. I mean, this guy wasn't necessarily, a great reliever by any means. And the same thing, just up and down the board. So younger guys, I'm encouraged by. Obviously, Barnes and Williams I like quite a lot. But I think overall, unfortunately, the Brewer fans are getting a little bit spoiled, and I think this is the main reason why we are several games over 500 as of this show, is because of the bullpen. And of course, with Vincent, I think it really comes down to Derek Johnson proving himself as being quite the pitching coach, because our starters are doing pretty well in pitching over their talent level as well. So to combine those things, I think you really start to realize that he's a common denominator, that our pitching staff, they did it all of last year and they're doing it again this year. They're pitching, in my opinion, above their talent level. And unfortunately, our hitters, just like the second half last year, also so far the first month plus of this year, have been underachieving, in my opinion. And the reason being, I don't know, but the bullpen, I mean, you would think with Corey Knebel coming back, it would make our bullpen even stronger. Unfortunately, I think when he comes back, some of these other guys are going to start to give up runs, and in doing so, it's going to seem as if our bullpen's not as good. I think I give kudos to Stearns for kind of piecing together the bullpen that we do have, because it's definitely working, and there's no doubt about that. But I mean, it's hard for me to really remember a stretch of the Brewers bullpen doing this well for this long, all as a unit. It's just pretty phenomenal when in my opinion.
Well, like you said too, Craig. I mean, even the starters, it's been great. I know that you predicted success for Wade Miley, but a lot of these other guys outside of Chase Anderson and maybe Zach Davies were real question marks, and it seems like our starters have really stepped up too. So, kudos to you on Miley, but surprising for some of these other guys as well.
Yeah. Certainly if Derek Johnson can make Wade Miley into a good pitcher, he's definitely a great pitching coach, because he hasn't really shown that he has been at effort before. So anyway, so I guess let's lead us kind of segueing to our hitters. Obviously, they're just really not coming around. I mean, again, just fresh off today's against Chad Poole, the Pirates, not exactly a great pitcher. We mustered 2 hits today, and we didn't have any type of that Sunday lineup, and I don't think we had all of our good players out there.
Two hits. That's all we got is 2 damn hits.
Exactly. You can't say that.
Yeah,
you can't say that on air, though.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Definitely true, actually, unfortunately. But anyway, I don't know what's going on. And maybe it's, once the bullpen starts giving up a bunch of runs, the Brewers will have all their bats clicking, and we'll have scored so many runs that the bullpen can afford to give up a bunch of runs. Maybe that's just how it's going to go. I don't know. But so far, not too happy with the hitting. I guess for this week in particular, just to point out of like a Scott's favorite segment, who's hot, who's not, I would say Domingo Santana had a huge hit last Monday, and he's had I think a 2-run double to get the Brewers a lead, which Josh Hader obviously held on to. But I mean, he had a pretty good hitting week overall, and he's showing some signs of life, so that's encouraging. But the dinged up injuries are starting to be really annoying. I mean, I know Yelich is finally back in there, but he's had annoying injuries all year. Braun, same thing. Kane misses games sporadically. I mean, these are our best hitters, and then now James is out. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we've been able to have our full best lineup in there all that many times this year, and I think that's part of the problem.
And maybe you guys would agree, but it seems like when our offense goes full, everyone goes full. It's not like one guy who struggles and then the rest of the team picks them up. It just seems like we're either really on or really off. And I know that there's a phrase that in baseball that says hitting is contagious. Maybe that's true. It just seems especially true with the 2018 Brewers. And I don't know. I recall last week, from our pre-production meeting, we had 2 hits in the game last Sunday and 2 hits again in the game this Sunday as well. So 2 weeks in a row, we're taping this following a 2-hit performance by the Brewers offense. It's crazy.
Ouch.
That says about a season's worth of 2-hit performances that we should have. I mean, in 1 week. So, I mean, yeah, that needs to be fixed. I don't know what the solution is, but we talked about possibly having a shot in arm and maybe someone come up from the minor leagues, and or maybe even Stephen Vogt coming back from injury. I did hear that Stephen Vogt during his rehab had to get pulled from a game. I'm not sure if that's going to be something serious or not, but there could be a delay in him coming back. And I was really looking forward to him getting his left-handed bat back in the lineup at catcher. But Scott, do you have any other update on that or not?
He's flying into Milwaukee. Looks like he's probably going to get some tests done, maybe an MRI, and it's probably not great. It's going to be a setback for sure. We just don't know how much of one. And I got some more bad news, Craig. As long as you were talking about bringing up maybe, I know we've been talking about bringing up Mauricio Dubon, and he actually is flying into Milwaukee. He's strained his knee, and he's going to get that looked at. Also an MRI, and that hopefully will not be significant.
Wow, yeah, and he extended his hitting streak to 23 games, which I think is like the third longest in Sky Sox history, earlier this afternoon on Sunday, May 6th. So that's unfortunate. We were going to talk about him in a coming up this Thursday with a prospect profile. But anyway, yeah, that's unfortunate news, Scott. Thanks for you and your intern Fantasia for getting those stats to us and that information up to date. So thank you. But so
you guys,
yeah, I don't know.
I was just going to say really quick. Do you guys think that we're going to target some offensive upgrades instead of pitching at the deadline? I think all of us on this podcast have talked about, adding another pitcher or a top of the rotation arm at the deadline, and maybe we still will. But I wonder if Stearns isn't going to target some bats, maybe a catcher or a second baseman or both. It just seems like maybe that would be the missing piece of the offense. Not saying him specifically, but a guy like what Neil Walker did last year when he was traded to the Brewers from the Mets. He was a real spark plug at the top of the lineup. I'm wondering if there's somebody out there this year that might be in the same boat.
I guess it's possible, like maybe Brian Dozier or something like that if the Twins don't get it together.
Yeah, that's a good name there, Scott.
And even though I don't think he will come very cheaply, another name that I thought that would be definitely a trade candidate this year, surprised he wasn't even traded last year on the A's, is second baseman Jed Lowry, but he's now hitting 350 with power for some reason. So his price tag probably went up as well. Unfortunately, I don't know unless we're truly in the thick of things at the time, and we're obviously too early to talk about that. I don't know if I'd go, pay a high price for a rental or anything like that. But with that being said, I do agree with your statement, Vince, that it would make sense, looking at our team right now, to go after bats over pitching for two reasons. Number one, all the other contending teams usually are hot after pitching, which drives up the price for those teams selling that at the time. So I don't think that we're going to be in a position to trade off for just a rental pitcher. It'd have to be some controllable young starter or something like that. And so that's going to cost us as well if we even go for that. And so guys like what we did last year, Neil Walker, veteran hitters are on their last year or so of their contract, are going to be available at a much cheaper rate. And I think Stearns showed last year that he found some good deals. And it wouldn't that surprise me if he do some offensive upgrades just because of the price being lower.
I literally don't even remember who we gave up last year for Walker. I want to say it was just cash, but I could be wrong with that. But I know it was very minimal. Yeah,
I don't want to offend the guy's mom who we traded, so I can't remember him offhand, but it wasn't anyone of significance as far as a prospect. Let's just put it this way, he wasn't in Brandon's top 30 future Brewer prospects at the time. So, so obviously, basically they were just shedding his contract. So that's the perfect thing to target. The Brewers have a low enough payroll where we're going to add a little payroll if we're going to go for it rather than give up young talent. And just like last year, it really strikes me as this year that the Brewers aren't going to go all in or anything, even if we're in a wild card lead at times, like we were last year, or even I think it'll be more like just a tinker here or there to add to the lineup at a trade deadline and see what happens type of thing, which can be frustrating as a Brewer fan, but I think it'll be a year or two before we start to really, make major moves and go for it type situation at a trading deadline. I think this year will be just kind of like more of a tinkering mode, but I guess we'll see where we're at the time. But as of right now, I'm still going to reiterate that this is still more of just a mediocre 500-ish team going forward, and I hope we get proven wrong, but I just don't think that we're really contenders.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I guess I would say is, because I know we only have a couple minutes here and we got to wrap this up, but just to clarify, right-hander Eric Hanhold's former sixth-round pick was the guy who was sent to the Mets for Walker. And Jed Lowry is a perfect candidate for being traded to us, but like you said, these are close to contributing. The price tag is high because he's making so much right now. Maybe who's the guy in Toronto? Plays everywhere. Haderade?
Yeah.
He might be an option too if Toronto falls out of it. Just those guys that play like any position That's what Stearns is all about. So that flexibility, he's a big fan.
Certainly that would be an upgrade over a VR or a Sogard or Hernan Perez situation that we currently have.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't know if we have time to quick get this in, but what are your predictions for this week? We have 2 games against the Indians at home. Unfortunately, we go against Corey Kluber and Carlos Carrasco, unfortunately. And then next weekend, we go to Colorado for 3 games. So only 5 games this week. Who wants to start off on their 5-game prediction?
I'll say 3.
3 wins?
I'll say 3 wins. Yeah, let's think up.
3 and 2 for Vince. Scott?
3 and 2.
My head says 2, but my heart says 3, so I'm going to have to go with my heart.
All right, I'm going to go with we will lose both games against the Indians at home, and we'll go 1 and 2 against Rockies in Colorado. So 1 and 4 on the week is my prediction. And, yeah, so that basically concludes our episode number 12. We have another one coming at you on this Thursday, episode number 13. We'll have more to talk about that, get some fan emails and so on. So if you haven't, send those in. If you want us to answer any questions at brewreviewpodcast@gmail.com. Please send in your emails.
Oh, yeah, or just throw it up on Twitter and follow us probably. I forget what ours is. It's like at Brew Crew Review, then the number 1, I think, something like that. You'll find us. It's not hard. It's Twitter.
Except for Chad. He's very hard to find. So
That's true.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right, go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Stay classy.
Rise!